Recovery means to me is freedom and peace.
There is hope.
Recovery is awesome.
Recovery works.
Recovery is possible. There is hope.
Recovery is possible. There is hope.
Recovery to me means freedom. Recovery is possible.
Recovery works.
Recovery is always possible. It's fantastic.
Progress, not perfection.
Recovery is possible.
Recovery works.
Recovery is a journey, not a destination.
Hello and welcome to Montana's Peer Network Recovery Talks podcast. Today I have a very special guest. We've never had this guest on before on Recovery Talks, which we probably should have. So Matthew Federrici, you and I have known each other for a long time. We both kind of started about the same time. I think you started just maybe a year or two ahead of me. And we run into each other, and then there's long periods where we don't have any interaction.
Yep.
And we reconnected, and which I'm so grateful for. And we got talking about one of your new programs, one of your new initiatives, and I said, why don't you come on and let's share this. Let's get this out there. So I want to welcome Matthew Federrici. Thank you for coming on, Executive Director for Doors to Wellbeing, a program of the Copeland Center. Many listeners are probably familiar with the organization, but probably not as familiar with this program, Taking Action.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Yeah, we're kind of like old school buddies, right? Like, we go a long period of time and
Right.
don't see each other, but then when we reconnect and yeah, we've just been on the kind of same trajectory, kind of hanging tough at trying to provide leadership around our peer recovery movement, right? So
Yeah.
I came to the Copeland Center in 2010, so 16 years now. But prior to that, I was, similar to you, I was driving a program that was statewide in Pennsylvania, where I'm from. And we were implementing, for the first time, we were developing, certifying, and implementing peer specialists, getting Medicaid to get on board with it so that it has like real longevity across the state of Pennsylvania. So we really connected because you're doing similar work for a number of years in Montana. And so, yeah, now I'm at the Copeland Center's Doors to Wellbeing. Doors to Wellbeing actually was it's a national consumer peer-run technical assistance center. And the Copeland Center has been around for over 20 plus years. And, in 2010, when I came on board, we took advantage of the opportunity of an application to operate the National Peer Consumer Recovery Technical Assistance Center, Doors to Wellbeing, with SAMHSA. And so I've had the privilege and honor to provide, evidence-based best practice peer trainings around the country and around the world. So we've been as far out as Japan, Hong Kong, Ireland, and so we've gone far with not only promoting the concepts and the importance of peer support roles in the system, and just how extraordinary that dynamic, how different and how important that dynamic is to empowering people to realize that there are things we can do for ourselves to get well and stay well for long periods of time. And so taking action is a critical component of that. According to the former director at SAMHSA, Paolo DeVecchio, taking action, this curriculum, the work began 30 years ago.
Wow.
And the grassroots members of the Copeland Center, which is now the nonprofit, peer-run, by the way, peer-led nonprofit organization, members that were involved with this organization were a part of a SAMHSA-funded contract to basically build, and this is really kind of Paolo DeVecchio's legacy, was to really partner with people with lived experience, different organizations across the spectrum, mental health, addictions, and build up an extensive library and knowledge base on recovery based on what was working from people with lived experience. Taking action, there was two elements of it. Was taking action. Another publication was called Action Plan for Prevention and Recovery. that pulled together this knowledge from our community of people who, at the time, some 30 years ago, were operating in a world where recovery was not as well known as it is
Right.
today.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but this idea that, people who had been heavily entrenched in the mental health or psychiatric system, hospitalizations, this idea that those individuals um, could get well and stay well and move beyond the dependency on the system,
Right.
and that they knew stuff where they could work together to make that happen.
Mhm.
That was really revolutionary at the time.
Mhm.
And that's the kind of the roots of our organization has been peers working together. Um, and that's where we are today as an organization. We are trying to transform the system by implementing practices and approaches that are by people for people who are most affected by that.
Yeah.
And so we have a number of curriculums. I think we have at least five randomized controlled trial studies of peer-based approaches that we have developed, and we're in the process. One of those is while taking action, the curriculum we're going to talk about, um, while that curriculum is already based on a number of evidence-based approaches and practices, we
Mhm.
are currently working with Temple University's Collaborative on Community Inclusion
Mhm.
to test, if you will, um, taking action for college students with mental health diagnoses. So,
That's
um,
great.
yeah, they're, go on our website, make sure you're on our listserv because there'll be opportunities for people if you're listening and you're a college student of any age
Mhm.
who identifies with a mental health challenge or been in recovery, you'll
Mhm.
be eligible for this study and you'll essentially get a free opportunity to go through the taking action as we call it taking action for whole health and well-being. And I'll talk a
Okay.
little bit about that. But
Yep.
you'll have an opportunity through the study, and I think there's some incentives to participate in the study. And
Mhm.
it's very non-invasive. You're just getting a free peer group educational process,
Mhm.
and you'll have researchers just checking in to see how they have their tools to kind of measure change.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we're like maybe in like the fifth cohort of that study. There's a number of other another other practices like a peer decision coaching
Mhm.
approach that we've developed and are testing. Uh,
Mhm.
right now, we're about to start one on it's based on the power of storytelling. Um, and it'll
Oh,
be a model and approach that
yeah.
is designed and tested so peer specialists in particular can get training in yet another evidence-based practice. So,
That's
but
great.
we have to be fair and see what the results are
Right.
of approaches.
Right.
So,
Right.
taking action an action plan for prevention. Again, these were contracted publications at SAMHSA, and about 2 or 3 years ago, again, Paolo DeVecchio,
Mhm.
essentially, he's retired now from SAMHSA, but on his final years, he kind of led an initiative called Spark. And Jim, you probably are familiar with Spark,
Yeah.
which stood for SAMHSA's Programs Advancing Recovery Knowledge. And
Mhm.
that Spark project was essentially kind of leveraging a lot of this like 30 years of
Mhm.
recovery knowledge and information that Samson had gathered and really
Mhm.
looking at how to, advance that recovery knowledge. So the Copeland Center team, partnered with SAMHSA and a number of other groups
Mhm.
to take that material in particular, the ones that we had historically been a part of, Action Plan for Prevention, Recovery, and Taking Action,
Mhm.
and essentially update the material and information. So part of that process was definitely reaching out and including a more expansive current day group of people in recovery, including addictions recovery,
Okay.
and expanding that. So, for example, originally that work was rooted in like five, six foundational concepts that were important to people in recovery. Um,
Mhm.
hope, self-determination,
Mhm.
empowerment, and which includes personal responsibility,
Mhm.
education, advocacy, um, and support. Part of the revisions and working with groups was recognizing, particularly after the pandemic, this is taking effect, right? This
Right.
work, this revision work.
Right.
Um, but also, there's a lot more knowledge in the addictions recovery world now than 30 years ago.
Right.
And of course, in this process, there's a lot more inclusion of that perspective in here. So, for example, as this got updated and taking action, uh, the foundational concepts to the curriculum, it included connection. So remember I mentioned pandemic and addiction.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have learned a lot more that one of the root elements to addiction is disconnection, and one of the
Right.
key concepts to that path is connection. But we also learned that for a much broader population of people after the pandemic, how significant disconnection, how important connection is to whole health and well-being,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
just that mental health, whole health connection. So.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you would see if you took a look at the public domain source material, which is available on the Copeland Center's website, Taking Action, you would see that there um, are those concepts included. Another element that is a part of Taking Action is um, the foundational concept of community participation or community inclusion.
Nice.
And that was a really important concept to the work. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
Notably for populations that have additional barriers to participation,
Mhm.
um, di different layers of discrimination that different populations face.
Right.
And
Right.
so, you can talk all you want about, you know, advocating for yourself and having hope. But if there are discriminatory barriers to your participating like everybody else,
Right.
um, there's only so much self-help you can do in the confines of your own home, right? You need to be
Right.
out there
Right.
taking action in the
Right.
community.
Right.
So we talk about the curriculum and the program now is really kind of engaging and looking at our participation in the community, what might be some of the barriers that we have to address and overcome.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, because when going back 30 years ago, when this all was taking place, I mean, there was this movement in mental health recovery that was taking place, right? This sort of evolution that was building out, and these programs came out of there, and the society, because this is when I got into recovery in the
Hmm.
90s, and society was not open to people with a mental health diagnosis. I mean, that was not, that was a huge barrier, right? And I think back like over the
Hmm.
last 30 years, how far just society in general has come, and there's still more work to do, but you see it in movies and
Hmm.
television, and there's tons of other podcasts and where people are openly talking about their mental health recovery and their wellness. And you just didn't see that back then. That was not happening, right?
Yeah, and part of that curriculum and content, what I like about it is that it talks about the evidence base for
Mhm.
something that maybe we take like, for granted, which is
Mhm.
the evidence base that people can and do recover,
Right.
and that they do recover through a lot of what you might call natural supports and
Mhm.
empowerment of the individual, not
Mhm.
just well, people recover because they can take medications and
Mhm.
work and be in the community. No, the evidence base, which most notably in the curriculum is talking about a person you can look up, Courtney Harding, and I know Jim, you know who
Mhm.
Courtney Harding
Yeah.
research study was, but
Yeah.
these were longitudinal studies of like 26 to 30 years. There were several projects like this that took people who were they were deemed to be the most severe cases. They were institutionalized for several more
Mhm.
years,
Mhm.
and they followed those individuals along and really found that those individuals recovered well beyond what any of
Mhm.
the treating professionals at that time would have
Mhm.
anticipated, and actually a whole third of people who were, not only dealing with what potentially were past trauma and mental health conditions, but then also being disconnected from society for several more years in an institution. So they were dealing with
Right.
institutionalization.
Right.
And to think that 1/3 of that total group went on to live their lives like everyone else in the community and did not need any other additional. And these are, so the question could remain like, well, what were those individuals doing that they were able to kind of get past all that and just be out in the community? Like, well,
Right.
taking action, this curriculum, this program is rooted on all those things that we can do for ourselves using the community to get well and stay well. It really, taking action was really the work of asking and finding out, you know, look, these folks are considered to be needing hospitalization for the rest of their lives or some type of service for the rest of their lives.
Right.
They didn't need that. Well, and this was at a time where there were not a whole lot of
Right.
services out there like there are
Right.
today. So what was working?
Right.
Well, what was working is they took action.
Yeah.
They were experts on their own lives, and they operated from these foundational concepts of
Yeah.
community participation, having the belief that you can get well and stay well,
Right.
even though
Right.
people who are considered to being experts were telling you, no, no, you can't.
Right.
Work is stress and
Right.
that you
Right.
would
Don't stress
exasperate your
yourself
symptoms, so
out.
you should not
Yeah.
work. Well, no, these folks went out. They had relationships, they
Right.
had jobs, and
Right.
um, and so taking action is really kind of rooted in that number one key evidence base of recovery.
Yeah.
That, like you said, back then when this started, was counterintuitive to what people were
Yes.
thinking you had to
Very
take care
much
of
so.
these folks.
Very, very much so. That was clearly the messages that I got from my provider, my
Hmm.
med provider, counselor. I mean, it was go on disability and you're going to be impacted the rest of your life. There
Yeah.
was no talk about personal responsibility and hope and recovery. I mean, those were like, I had to go seek that out and find that in other avenues. Yeah. Yeah. We've definitely come a long ways. So taking action, how does somebody how does somebody get involved with this? How does somebody find out about this? What would be, if somebody's listening right now and they're like, hey, this sounds great. This is what I need, or supporting somebody and I want to know more about this. What's the
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So, well, number one, if you can go to the website at copelandcenter.com, and under training, you can see the different levels of training.
okay.
So this work, which has been kind of enhanced with kind of leveraging the SAMHSA source material into what we call taking action for whole health and well-being.
Okay.
Um, Now, so we're kind of enhancing something we've done here at the Copeland Center for over 20 plus years all around the world, and that is training facilitators, peers, people with their own lived experience on how they have done things like utilize wellness tools,
Mhm.
operated from these concepts we talked about, like hope and self-determination. Um, and a key element to how we have trained facilitators and trained trainers around the world is that we operate from we don't do workshop presentations and it's not even just a support group. There's a very intentional approach to co-facilitating um, mini community workshops and groups through our lived experience, and that's the key element. Is it's I always like to describe it as like yoga. It's a practice. It's a way of
Mhm.
approaching life, a way
Yeah.
of taking action for your whole health and
Yeah.
well-being.
Yeah.
And like yoga, nobody wants to have someone lead a yoga group that isn't doing yoga themselves, right?
Very
Um,
important. Yes.
and
That's
so it's a lifestyle practice. We have different levels, and we have people who are offering groups and throughout the country and the community.
mhm.
And some folks have gone through it through older material that we've used.
Mhm.
But again, even if the yoga practice gets enhanced and there's new techniques,
Mhm.
there are a lot of folks that have come to get this new enhanced material
Mhm.
and are able to quickly go back and offer groups in their community. So um,
Mhm.
it is definitely a different dynamic online, but we have offered online foundational starting. It's kind of like you can begin to practice yoga in your life, and some people can get the YouTube videos and start developing the practices. And
Right.
ideally, in the evidence base, is it's most powerful, when it's an in-person group
In
dynamic.
person.
So
Right.
now I know, Montana Peer Network has had a history of really getting trained and offering workshops and
Yeah.
opportunities around, historically Copeland Center curriculum, and
Yeah.
will also be updated with taking action. So that'll be an opportunity for people to go
Yeah.
through Montana's Peer Network,
Yeah.
checking out the Copeland Center website. People can download some of the curriculum materials, and a lot of it is designed in a workbook fashion where you can, begin to journal and look at examples of wellness tools. You can begin, thinking about your daily maintenance plan, which is in taking action
Right.
as well. It isn't really an isolatory experience, though. Like, you get a lot more out of exchanging it with other peers.
Right.
Um, but to bring yourself into those conversations, you can read some of the material and start to journal it for yourself as well.
Yeah. 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 And I would say to the listeners, if this is something you're interested in, email us at MPN, right? And let us know that, right?
Mhm.
So that we can build, you know, a group of people, a class, so we can bring Matthew out here. I mean, that's what we're after. That's why we're doing this right now, to build interest and give some basic education, but build the interest so that we can do that, because that's our intention. That's always been our intention with you guys at the Copeland Center, right? Is there's got to be the interest, and then we're happy to bring you out and do something, because I like this program. You sent me the material a month or so ago, and at first when I was looking through it, I was like, oh yeah, I get it. Like, and everything that you're sharing, the history, which I really appreciate. It just, man, that the first time that I heard those things, I mean, Matthew, that those words it's so powerful. The community inclusion, the personal responsibility, those resonated with me. And, all these years later, they're still at the foundation of this organization and what we do, but they
Mhm.
resonated with me personally. And I love that you hit on the idea of you have to do it. You don't have a yoga instructor who shows up because they read the book and teaches you how to do yoga. It's the practice of it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder if you could talk a little more just about that and how important and why that's so important, especially with the growth in the peer support workforce. This
Mhm.
isn't just another program you go get the training. It's a one-time deal. You go get the training, and then you're like, hey, let me teach this to other people. But you
Yeah.
really have to embrace it. That's what this is truly about. That's the wellness part of the program, right?
Yeah. For me, for me, Jim, like, I feel very fortunate to be a part of what I think ultimately is a peer a peer recovery community, and taking action for whole health and well-being has been a development over, as we said, 30 years, not just of a curriculum of information, but a worldwide network of people. And so, for me, kind of the key ingredients is, yes, it's important. We have things like dimensions of wellness and domains of these things and
Mhm.
concepts, and
Mhm.
and they are really important because they are kind of like a summary of shared experience. Like, we,
Mhm. Mhm.
cross the board,
Mhm.
as people who've gone through this journey, these are principles we've all kind of come to
Right.
know.
Right.
And that's important, and that's one key. I'd say almost like three pillars for me. That is knowing what that foundation is, and that in some regards that's like a compass for me in this journey of
Yep.
being well and staying well in my life.
Mhm.
The other element of that is the structure of
Mhm.
taking action, which is this idea of like building up a toolbox of
Right.
wellness tools in my life that are individual to me. Nobody else can really come up with these. There's no check off list that, I have to really think about my environment and the things and supports around me that are, when we say
Right.
wellness tools, we say simple and safe.
Yeah.
And then we take that into the structure of daily action. Like, what am I going to do each day, including waking up and going, what does wellness look like for me today? It's
Yes.
raining out today. What does wellness
Yes.
look like?
Yeah.
And then what do I need to do from that toolbox today? What might I choose to do? What are some of my
Yeah.
goals?
Yeah.
And then it's, taking action then breaks it down into what we call dealing with difficult times. And now we look at like events and circumstances that when they happen, we know can challenge our wellness, and we call those
Right.
triggers. And then there are signs, some more subtle signs, what we
Yeah.
call early warning signs that I can notice that perhaps might be feelings or thoughts, or
Right.
sometimes my subtle signs show up in some things that I'm doing around my house, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not opening the blinds,
Right.
and then progressively when things break down, and then crisis planning, and then beyond crisis planning is advanced directives, like I'm incapacitated, what are my medical
Right.
wishes, right?
Right.
And then full circle, post crisis plan. So for me, it's these foundational compass concepts, right? Like
Mhm.
self-determination and community
Mhm.
inclusion.
Mhm.
And then it's the structure that I get to use. And it's a structure that has been vetted and tested and used for lots of
Right.
people. It's worked. But the third element of that is a community of peers that I get to share and stay engaged in it.
Yeah.
Because I myself have been practicing, if you will, like yoga, I've been practicing this approach, and it's easy to drift away. And I've been supported because prior to being at the Copeland Center, I worked on a peer team like in Pennsylvania that was much like Peer Montana's network, and like being a
Mhm.
part of that network that's using these compass concepts and this
Right.
structure
Right.
keeps me engaged. Like when the pandemic hit, all my wellness tools and my daily plan needed to be retooled
Mm.
and rethought. And this is not, again, like yoga. It's not like you go to do one yoga class and you're like, great, I'm done. I did
Hey,
yoga
I got
once,
it.
right? Yeah. Um, and so
Yeah.
taking action is a
Yeah.
lifetime thing.
Yeah.
You have to take action your whole life.
Yeah.
And I would not have really been able to like reconfigure some of my actions on my own. Like
Mhm.
we got online when we were all shut down in the pandemic, and we got together with all of the facilitators we had around the country,
Mhm.
and we didn't come and say, well, what do we need to do for all these other people? We said, all right, what do our wellness tools look like today? And I
Yeah.
learned so many great ideas, so many
Yeah.
different ways to stay well through that. And so for me, what is essential is not that we just get this information out or get a book out on the concepts
Right.
or give people a workbook for journaling the action planning, but you need the peer community.
Yeah.
And that peer community, we have learned over the years that there's a way in which that group needs to be formed together, that it's a group
Right.
dynamic. And a critical piece that's been tested is that facilitation, and this is what our training is based on, is that it's facilitated through something we call certain values and ethics of
Right.
wellness. And Dr. Judith Cook did a study of these concepts and these approaches, and what was really studied was that there were two co-facilitators that were practicing this work using lived experience,
Right.
and that they followed these core set of values and ethics. And they were things like that the group decisions were made by the group, that the focus was on mutuality and shared learning. Well, having done this work, Jim, you can't just put a group of people in a room and expect they're all going to work together and feel vulnerable and open up to share
Right.
ideas, right?
That's right.
So there's an intentionality in how we bring that group together and get it to a place where
Yeah.
peers are sharing together ideas around wellness toolbox, and particularly when you get into sharing difficult times.
Yeah.
A lot of times people don't want to talk about the
Yeah.
particular things that may
Yeah.
set them off, and how
Yeah.
you have to build a certain level of trust in the room,
For
and so
sure.
there's an approach to that, and that's
Yeah.
that's where the work of the Copeland Center Doors to Wellbeing has been focused on,
Yeah.
is how do we how do we really put those values and practices into
Yeah.
place? What are the particular group facilitation skills And as somebody with lived experience on a lot of sides of this, you know, way before there was recovery and peer support, I had to go to college and then try to work in the field. Um, and I took an advanced course on doing support groups and stuff, and
Yeah.
um, none of that was covered. It was a totally different lens. It was a clinical
Right.
approach.
Right.
It was a
Right.
different way of doing it. What we do
Right.
in terms of facilitating these groups around taking action is foundationally and fundamentally different than any other in the mental health field in particular.
Right.
It can complement the anonymous 12-step traditions, but it's also not that either, right? So
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it really is a
Yeah.
unique group
Yeah.
experience.
For sure. For sure. It's I just came off doing the 40-hour peer support training. And we've been doing that for a decade now. And the group dynamics, allowing the space for people to be vulnerable. I mean, that's the whole first day of
Hmm.
creating that environment for people so that they feel comfortable and the trauma informed approach of the way the room is aligned so people are facing each other and we're all in this
Hmm.
together and nobody's sitting with their backs to each other. I mean, it's like there are so many elements that go into creating that environment and that the time they spend together, some of the people who go through I mean, they form these bonds and they stay friends for a long time. They become colleagues, of course, because they're
Hmm.
becoming peer supporters, but it all comes from creating that safe environment so people feel open to begin discussing things that they may not be comfortable with because that's the concept of peer support. You're going to be doing that in the workplace. I mean, that's what it's about, right? Like,
Hmm.
so I love that. And reflecting back on, you know, um, my own experiences and just how when that doesn't happen, when I go to a training and that doesn't happen, and how I get this reaction to it internally right away, where it's like, ooh, this doesn't feel very comfortable and safe. And
Hmm.
even though you may be asked questions that are asking you vulnerable things, it's like we're not there yet. You can like sense it in the room. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the kind of the beauty of the facilitation and learning to facilitate these taking action groups. So it has this kind of inside window of um, allowing people to redefine what wellness could look like for themselves,
Right.
and certainly when you redefine your identity and your wellness in that way, it impacts the relationships you have or you will have, which in turn helps you find your community and et cetera. And so there really is this inside out um, opportunity for everybody to come into these taking action groups.
Yeah.
Uh, and what is also unique about it is that we avoid like medical and clinical language and identities and really focus in on kind of real life feelings, experiences that people are having. So you might have somebody who comes through this one door of I'm here because I have these people helping me with this particular issue in my life.
Mhm.
And you may have people coming in from another door, maybe they're all coming in from the same door, but the training is in how do we facilitate not operating from any one particular door or label or diagnosis.
Mhm.
Because although I may have a significant mental health challenge and I've been given a diagnosis,
Mhm.
um, I show up in a room and somebody's talking about their diabetes or somebody's
Right.
talking about a heartbreak in a relationship that caused
Right.
them to isolate. And I get to go where I need to be with
Yeah.
what wellness tools and what I'm working with. And I don't have to operate from those things. And
Right.
that's important, particularly for peers entering the mental health system or even the addiction system,
Mhm.
to know how to set the stage and the environment up where people can go where they need to go because we don't often want to be operating in a position as a peer and have someone see us as an expert in their mental health. But
Right.
that's the way 98% of everyone else is treating them. So when they
Yeah.
come into your group, how do we like avoid getting caught up in that where
Right.
we're standing in front of the room
Right.
and we want to be talking about how we both equally take action in our lives and
Yep.
have ideas for doing that. And the group, if you will, is look face forward, going, here's another mental health professional. Let me fire questions at them to see if they can help me
Right.
with X.
Right.
And I know what that's like. And what I loved about,
Yep.
Copeland Center trainings, even before I was CEO here, was I went to this community so that I could learn how to undo that because I didn't want to operate in relationships
Right.
that were based in that anymore.
Right. Right. I tell people when we start the training, like within the first 30 minutes, probably,
Hmm.
I actually I actually share with them the most important concept or idea if they want to be effective in their roles as peer supporters. They have to understand themselves and their own journey in order to truly be effective to be. And I tell them that in the first, and it's so interesting because then I get to watch this play out over the course of the week, right?
Hmm.
And as they go through learning and sharing and opening up and then towards the end when we're wrapping up, then we do this reflection and then and they they say the most amazing things, right? And it
Hmm.
all goes back to creating that environment that you can teach all these concepts, right? You can teach all these, like you're saying, but um, you really have to do the practice. That's what's really sticking with me here, the
Hmm.
practice of it, and that's how you're truly going to be able to support someone else. You know, yeah, yeah, that's great. So they can go to the copelandcenter.com website, get some information.
Yep, it's also doorstowellbeing.org. They kind
Okay.
of all rivers lead towards
Okay.
the many different resources that we have.
Okay.
At the website you can find
Yep.
the SAMHSA source material, which is for mass public consumption. We hope as many people get
Mhm.
access as possible.
Mhm.
Um, we've developed taking action for whole health and well-being, which is the kind of evidence-based approaches to
Mhm.
um, to creating that group learning environment. And it's based on the source materials. Has a
Okay.
few additional things that we have found in terms of what I was saying earlier about like really setting the stage for how do you engage people to set the stage to say like this is about redefining that inside out window for you, like what wellness
Mhm.
looks like for you.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
even though there are these foundational concepts, for example, of help, hope, self-determination, education, self-advocacy. We really want people to understand that this is about how you're taking action
Right.
and what
Right.
what are those foundational principles that you've discovered are helpful for you.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that I have seldom ever done it where people didn't find that the principles of taking action didn't align with what people were already finding for themselves. But we always start off with the same way this whole work started off, which is through your own lived experience, what's
Right.
working for you, right?
Yeah. Right.
And that's quite frankly why when we started off um, doing this work, we talked about self-esteem, for example, as like a extra topic. But over the years, by really coming from the inside out with every group, we
Mhm.
realized self-esteem is an upfront concept.
Sure.
Because as some people shared once, like what I hoped for, my hope
Mhm.
was proportional to my self-esteem. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
what I allowed people to do to me
Yeah.
in the name of treatment was really based on low
Mhm.
self-esteem.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we really talk about the importance of self-esteem and that it's self-esteem, which means I do have the responsibility to
Right.
think about what builds up and keeps up
Right.
my sense of self-worth
Right.
and
Right.
self-protection. So
Yeah.
Yeah, this is why it's important that through the group experience that we're allowed to really define things for ourselves.
Yeah.
Taking action is not about coming and teaching to people, here's how you need to see yourself and what you need to do.
Right.
It
Right.
really is what we call an experiential and engaged learning process, not
Right.
a didactic,
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. 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 Well, Matthew, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Well, thank you. Obviously, I get really excited about talking about this stuff. I think,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
it's great. Your passion comes through, and hopefully, listeners will pick up on that. And again, email us at the Peer Network if this is something you're interested in, because we want to bring Matthew out to Montana. And again, you can go to copelandcenter.com. Of course, MT Peer Network, where you're probably listening to this, you got connected through us. And let us know. And we're going to be putting out more information about taking action. And and to the listener, thank you for tuning in to another episode. And Matthew, thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and yeah, to the listeners, especially if you've listened all the way to the end here, thank you. That's an honor. I have a question for both of us, Jim, if we can, to
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
bring this to a finality here, which is
Yeah.
what are we going to do to take action for our whole health and well-being today? What is our wellness tool?
Ooh. Well, I did not get out in my greenhouse. That's a daily thing that I do from spring through fall. And we're recording this in the morning. So I came into the office. And so when I go home for lunch, I need to get into the greenhouse and get everything watered and, open the windows and take care of my flowers and vegetables. What about
Nice,
you?
nice. Well, pun intended here. I'm going to probably go to the other Jim, the one that starts with a G.
Okay.
And yeah, in order to keep a connection with my older son, I decided to start taking up weight training and going to the gym
Oh,
because that's what he was really into. And this
yeah.
past fall, when I'm in Pennsylvania, not much different than Montana, it was a cold and ugly winter. And I've always been very tuned in to the weather, shall
Mm-hmm.
I say. And
Mm-hmm.
I found that one of the best tools for me when I was hitting that kind of dark gray depression of the winter and the fall was getting to the gym and getting just a release through my whole body. And so,
Nice.
yeah, I'll be going and I wanted to stay on top of that because I realized, wait a minute, depression, anxiety, like all these difficult feelings are not just up here in my skull. It's actually throughout my whole body. And
Right.
without movement, like it's not going anywhere. I can't like breathe it out, I have
Right.
to get out that energy.
Yeah.
So I will be staying on top of my now new kind of daily maintenance plan, which is getting to the gym or some form of movement or exercise every day. So
Yeah.
I'll be looking forward to ending my day with that.
Excellent. That's good. Very good. Well, Matthew, thank you. And hopefully we'll be bringing you out here to Montana very soon.
Yeah, Montana is a beautiful state. Love to have an opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you.
There's always hope. Recovery is possible.
Recovery works.
There is hope in recovery.
Healing takes time.
Recovery means resilience.
You can get through anything. Recovery works.
Recovery